This is Taking Aim with
Schoenman
and Mya Shone, along with
Poynter,
for an update on the case of Lynne Stewart. Today is May 13th, Mother's Day, and our Mother Courage, who's both a mother and a grandmother and a great-grandmother, is in Carswell, Texas, at the Federal Medical Facility, unjustly convicted and forced into now a 10-year sentence, which is still up on appeal. We haven't heard from the judges of the Second Circuit Appellate Court on the question of whether or not she should have been resentenced from 28 months to 10 years. Meanwhile, Ralph Poynter has been with Lynne over the weekend and has a lot to tell us about Lynne's health status and the magnificent courage of our Mother Courage, Lynne Stewart. Ralph?
Yes, today is Mother's Day, and as Lynne and I, who spent much time visiting political prisoners, we always marveled at when you leave the prison, the political prisoners pick you up and make you better. And Lynne is no different. Today, when I was in the prison, it was a long line for Mother's Day. The scenes that were taking place in the prison brought Lynne to tears, and it showed her empathy that she has not lost one bit of since she's been in jail. And she commented on these women who were doing long sentences on drug charges, nonviolent drug charges. It's the crime of their sentences and the crime of their separation of children and grandchildren and the reunions of people who had come afar and some of the local people it was heartrending. And Lynne just said, well, our cause is just now we must all understand why we're under the pressure of the government and what this struggle is all about, to form a decent government. And as for her health, she's hurting. And she reminded me that prison is about waiting and watching. You're waiting for a decent meal, waiting for an operation, waiting for medical care, waiting for a decision from the Second Circuit, waiting to see if your case can be handled will be taken up by the Supreme Court. So she is good, she's resolute, and she says, failure must not be something that crosses our mind or our lips. We must be determined, and we must understand that the struggle that requires endurance, the struggle requires in the belief that time and events will continue to vindicate our truth, our beliefs in the human condition and the human ability to change that condition. So with that, I leave you with words from Lynne. She feels that the things, go to her website and look at the last three statements she's issued, one on May Day, one on Trayvon Martin, and one on Women's Day. She feels that she covered a lot of subjects, and she apologizes to all of the people who have written her. And her writing is slow. Her responses are slow, but she promises she's going to pick it up because her physical condition is such that she's only comfortable laying flat on her back. So it cuts down on her writing, but she promises to get back in form and to answer every letter of people who have written her. And she says she's gotten back people who have written her, 30 months ago. She's just answering. So she begs for patience and wants people to know she does not put the letters aside until they are answered. Thank everybody. Thank Ralph, Mya, Russell for their efforts in putting this together, letting people know she's still out there.
Well, I think it's important to point out here that Lynne is not only enduring an outrageous and unjust sentence for which she is being targeted for the reasons that the U.S. is targeting the population of the world. Namely, they've created this fictive enemy. I should emphasize about this that only just the last few days it was exposed that the Joint Chiefs of Staff War College has been carrying courses of instruction for their senior officers called Perspectives on Islam and Islamic Radicalism, and the gravamen of these courses, as it's been exposed, has been to create the mindset and rationale for the obliteration of Mecca and Medina and the utilization of nuclear weapons in the expansion of U.S. control of the region. This has been publicly exposed, and it's been cited as an example of the Islamophobia that has been central to the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the instruction they're giving their senior officer. Of course, that was essentially the ideological mantra around which Sheikh Omar Abdul Rahman was framed for a government operation in the so-called landmarks plot and the first bombing of the World Trade Center, in which this hysteria was generated about Islam and the supposed Islamic fanatics who were targeting the United States, when in reality these have been government operations. And now Joint Chiefs of Staff have been exposed for not merely promoting this as an ideology, but for concretely projecting the literal physical obliteration of Medina and Mecca in the process. One further comment about this, namely that this is not only taking place inside the closeted quarters of the College of the Army Joint Chiefs of Staff, but we're all aware of the fact that most recently the Obama regime has once again orchestrated one of these government false flag operations quite analogous to the so-called landmarks plot and the original charges regarding the World Trade Center and Sheikh Omar Abdul Rahman. And I'm speaking of the so-called underwear bomber who was fiendishly preparing an exceptionally difficult to detect liquid bomb which he was carrying in his underpants. And lo and behold, he had boarded the airplane, only for us to be informed that this person happened to be a Central Intelligence Agency operative and part of Saudi intelligence. So the response of the government when this embarrassing disclosure emerges is to say that, in fact, that showed that he was a double agent. Well, double agent, of course, is nonsense. What it exposes, spin aside, is that the operation was a government operation from beginning to end, and the perpetrator was a government agent. And the analogy is to the earlier underwear bombing with the Nigerian student who's supposed to have attempted to get on the plane without a visa or a passport. All of this by way of emphasizing that Lynne Stewart has been targeted in the forefront of defending those who have been framed for charges that were in fact the responsibility of the United States authorities themselves. That's why she is such a threat to the established order, because she represents the expose and the defense of those who have been falsely accused, and the finger is pointed right at the authorities themselves, the perpetrators, the ruling class, who are denying our democratic rights, of which the persecution and prosecution of Lynne Stewart is the premier example.
Yes, well, it's one of the things I say to Lynne. I says, you're a great attorney as well as a great human being, but your problem is that you proved the government guilty as well as Sheikh Omar Abdul Rahman not guilty. And they couldn't tolerate you going around the country speaking on this and challenging anybody to defend the government position. And so this is why she is in jail. She knows this is why she is in jail. She is now in the position, unenviable position, of fighting for her own freedom. But in one of the things she has steadfastly said, that so many people have suffered so much trying to make America into the image that it has created for itself, to make it real, that how can she, the beneficiary of this race hatred with her skin privilege, the beneficiary of her parents' skin privilege, the beneficiary of her Irish, English, Swedish and German grandparents and great-grandparents have enjoyed, benefited from this imperialism. How could she draw back from the struggle of justice for all people?
Well, and also, Ralph, and Lynne's made a statement. She pointed out that her Swedish grandparents came over as indentured laborers. As many of those who were brought here as immigrants, they came under the conditions of effective servitude. Each immigrant generation in their turn has been ghettoized and exploited and demonized in the process as people have been pitted against each other by the rulers and controllers. And that's, of course, no less true today than it has been in the past. But that's why the old adage that Lynne is always espousing, black and white unite and fight, and the oppressed together. I think that is what she represents, the struggle against oppression and in defense of all the oppressed.
You've been listening to an update on the case of Lynne Stewart. Please check out LynneStewart.org. That's LYNNESTEWART.org for how you can contact Lynne, how you can donate to the ongoing support of Lynne while she is in prison and to her defense committee. This has been Taking Aim with
Ralph Schoenman,
Mya Shone, along with
Ralph Poynter.
We'll be with you again.